Congressman, welcome back to the program here.
Great to be here. Great to be in Dallas.
We are closing in on early voting here. What's your honest assessment of where this race is right now?
Yeah, I think anybody who's objective will look at this and see you've got a race that's neck and neck, that's within the margin of error in virtually every poll that we've seen. There was one outlier poll down in Houston, but we don't put much stock in it. It's a text push poll. But we feel very good. We're going across the state of Texas, getting a lot of great response. And, there's one key difference in this election than the March 3rd election. It's that, we're coming in hard with ads, and we're doing contrast ads against my opponent. I ran nothing but positive ads in the first race. That's how I wanted to run the campaign. My opponent came in and hit pretty hard on some ads, so we're gonna punch back, and I think the people of Texas are gonna see the contrast, and it's very clear.
What poll is that you're talking about? The U of H poll?
Yeah, the U of H poll,
okay.
which is I'd say a text version, which we don't put as much stock in.
Sure.
If you look at all of the statewide polls we've seen from organizations, from NGOs, from other statewide officials, and our own internals and other stuff we're looking at, we've seen everything that puts it neck and neck within 2 or 3 points, and we're trending in the lead as we continue to run our ads, which we started running in earnest last Friday.
Congressman, you said you're preparing a well-funded, full-throated effort in the final stretch here. What are voters going to see from your campaign?
Well, they're going to see a contrast. They're going to see a choice between someone who has been a federal prosecutor, and I was a prosecutor here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I lived up in McKinney, was a prosecutor in Sherman, Plano, putting bad guys in jails, the drugs running up 75. You want somebody who's appeared before a judge, who's been in the courtroom and has done the work. First Assistant Attorney General. I served there. I know the office well. I've managed those 4,100 employees. I've run complex litigation, winning victories for the state of Texas. You need somebody who's got that experience, who's been in court and who's done the job. And I think that message is resonating strong across the state of Texas. My opponent, with all due respect, has never really practiced law. He's basically running his own family business, and they do royalties stuff, and I don't begrudge that background, but it's not ready for prime time as the Attorney General of the state of Texas, which, by the way, biggest law firm in the state. Sure. In my opinion, the most important legal job, particularly for conservatives and for Texans in the country. So we're drawing that contrast. We're making clear. I think he's made some naive decisions as a state senator. I'm going to point those out. And you want somebody who's got the battle scars, who's been a proven conservative, who's been in the cauldron, and he likes to take some pot shots from the cheap seats. It's tough when you're in the swamp in D.C. and you're taking the arrows fighting for the people of Texas, and you have to stand up and deliver and figure out how to get the big, beautiful bill done, figure out how to deliver on the Save America Act out of the House, push the Senate. That's all big stuff and big stakes legislating and leadership. And I think the more people see that, the more they're drawn to our campaign. And every stop I've had, we've been moving people over and flipping votes, and we feel like we're heading in the right direction.
Why do you think this race is so close?
Because my opponent is self-funding, and he dropped $18 million calling me everything between Satan and a backstabbing rhino. Yeah. So only in Texas can you call somebody who's got a voting record that is the second highest in the entire House of Representatives in alignment with America First and MAGA somehow a rhino. My opponent thinks he can get away with that by spending his family money, and he did. He spent 16 to 18 million bucks in the first race, now millions more in the runoff. And, so he bought up some name ID. But if I'd spent almost $18 million and I ended up still south of 40 points, I'd be pretty frustrated. And I think that's because people know me, they know who I am, and they know what I will do for them as their Attorney General. And I'll point out one other thing. My opponent was the beneficiary of a PAC in California, a bunch of leftists who ran $1 million of ads against me, and they bought some more time now because I delivered on repealing the Green New Scam subsidies in the Big Beautiful Bill. And I personally led that fight. And I shut the Big Beautiful Bill down for 4 days in a budget fight in order to restore some of those repeals of the Green New Scam subsidies. And man, these leftists in California, they've publicly stated we're going to end Chip Roy's political career. I tell you what, they fear me as Attorney General. They do not fear Mays.
You said that you originally tried to avoid going negative against Mays Middleton, but finally had to respond.
Sure.
Was that a strategical error to not hit him after he was hitting you so hard?
Well, we had a 4-way race, and I'm in Congress doing my job, and we're running our ads to get our name built up where I didn't have name ID. Mine was already higher, and we were making clear that I was supported by Senator Ted Cruz. He's endorsed me, that I'm endorsed by a lot of conservatives across the state of Texas, and I think that laid the foundation. Maybe in retrospect, we could have run a few negative ads, making clear Mays' lack of experience and the fact that he's made some strategic errors over the years in his service in the Senate. But we're going to make that clear now when it matters, and we're doing that right now, and people are responding.
You've had moments where you've broken with President Trump publicly in Congress. Do you think that's going to? Do you think that Republican primary voters are going to remember that at all? Do you think they'll hold that against you?
I think that my opponent would like to try to gin up some sort of divide between the president and myself, which is not there. We talk regularly. We work well together. Again, I'm the lead author of the Save America Act, the piece of legislation he's declared as his #1 priority in this session. We've made progress, passed that out of the House. Obviously, we're trying to move it in the Senate. The president and I worked together to deliver on the big, beautiful bill, and I just described a way in which I had to slow things down in order to deliver something he wanted. Let's be very clear. That was something the president wanted. He knows that. There's a reason why we were in Kerrville last year, and after the devastating floods, the president comes down, we're meeting, we're talking about all these issues, and he said in front of everybody that I represent, in front of God and the entire state of Texas, you know what? I would spend a lot of time with Chip Roy last week on the big, beautiful bill. He's not easy, but he's good. Look, I have no better endorsement than that statement. That's who you want as your attorney general. You want somebody who will stand up, take arrows, who will stand in front of the freight train, no matter who it is, but will deliver results alongside President Trump. I work for the people of Texas. I'm not a lawyer for the bureaucrats in Austin. I'm not a lawyer for the swamp in Austin. I'm a lawyer for the people of Texas to defend the state of Texas when I'm the attorney general.
This is a huge race in the Republican primary runoff, but it could come down to whoever John Cornyn or Kim Paxton gets out their voters more. Are you concerned that could impact your final tally at all?
Well, that race is, taking on its own life.
Sure.
You've got close to a 50-50 race there. I look at some polls, it might be a 55-45, depending on what you're looking at. But that race is going to drive out whoever it drives out. We're going to do our work to make sure our people show. Texas 21, the congressional district I represent, is the highest turnout congressional district in the state. We're going to turn our people out. They believe in me. They've stood by me. I look forward to getting them out to the polls. And we believe our message is going to carry the day in control. We've got a plan to turn out the vote, and we're going to do it across the state of Texas. I'm crisscrossing the state. I'm here in Dallas-Fort Worth now. This week, I was in San Antonio, I was in Fredericksburg, I was in Georgetown, I was in Longview, Tyler, Frisco, Little Elm, Dallas right now, going out to Weatherford, Odessa, Midland, Alpine, back to Austin. I got to go see my mom on Mother's Day. So we've been crisscrossing the state.
Yeah. Is this a final push before early voting?
Well, it's a big push.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm also burning both ends of the candle as a sitting member of Congress in a 2-3 seat majority. I got to go back. We've got bills we're still needing to move this week. I'm holding a hearing on Islam in the subcommittee of the Constitution on Wednesday. I've got work to do. My opponent really doesn't. So he's out, doing his thing. But we're going to push hard this week. We'll do a lot of remote campaigning. Be back next weekend. Hit the ground hard for the few days that I'm here. Senator Cruz is going to do a big rally with us. We'll do that down in Houston in his home turf. And then we'll get busy the next week. And I may stay here that next week. It depends on votes. I have an obligation. I told the people that I represent, I ran to be their congressman, and I got to deliver. But, if those votes aren't particularly important, that might be a week I stay here in Texas. So we'll see.
In which part of the state do you think your race is going to be decided?
Well, I know this is going to sound cliche. It's the whole state, because I have to earn their votes. Obviously, the population center, if you add up Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, that's the lion's share. But people across the state are showing up, and there's going to be probably 1.2, 1.3 million people that probably vote in the runoff. So we got to go target them where they are. And we're doing that in the big metroplexes, but we're doing it throughout rural Texas. We're going as far as we can, reaching out to everybody. I've got friends in almost every county in Texas because I've served with some statewide leaders. Ted Cruz is his chief of staff, Governor Perry. Now as a member of Congress, where I've built up a name ID and people know who I am. They know they can trust me. They know they can believe in me. And frankly, they know that occasionally if they're going to disagree, they know that I'm trying to do it because I want to defend the Constitution and defend the people of Texas. And you know what? There's no one we agree with on every issue. But I think people believe that I'll fight for them.
And you've kind of laid this out, but let me ask it again just to have it all concise here.
Yeah.
Biggest difference between you and Mays Middleton as voters go to the polls?
I'm a real lawyer. He's not. And you need a real lawyer as the Attorney General.
What do you
of the
mean
state
real
of Texas.
lawyer? Because he's going to say, oh, I absolutely have a law degree.
Well, having a law degree doesn't mean you're a real lawyer. You need somebody who's actually been in court, stood before a judge, who's presented a case, convicted a criminal, who stood up as the first assistant attorney general, managed the complex litigation and figuring out which cases to file and who to file them with, winning a case alongside West Virginia on the Clean Power Plan, fighting the President Obama's wrongful declaration of on the deferred action for children and parents in terms of illegal alien children. These are all cases I've been running, leading, winning on. I was a lawyer for Governor Perry, a lawyer in Washington. That actually gives you experience that is necessary to be the Attorney General. It's not the Secretary of Law, it's the Attorney General. You need to be a lawyer who can show up in court and actually do the work. So, well, I'm just going to administer the agency. Well, you know what? It's important to actually know the agency and know how to administer it, and I've got the skills to do it. But look, I think he's made mistakes along the way because you accept what the swamp in Austin gives you. You just get handed a memo by some religious liberty or property rights groups, and they say, hey, here's a bill, file this bill. And then you wake up and you look at it and you realize, hey, I filed a bill that's going to allow mosques to build more housing developments around the mosques, and then all of a sudden people are criticizing you, and you change the author's intent and you leave the bill in place. That's what you do when you're a rookie lawyer and you don't know the consequences of what you do when you're just handed a bill by the think tanks and the lawyers in the swamp. I do, and I'll be the voice that can defend Texans.
If elected, priority one.
Priority one is to make sure you've got the best team in place to be able to execute and deliver on open records, open government, and to make sure child support's delivering, and make sure we're continuing to carry out the litigation against the federal government.
Is that keeping Paxton's team in place? Or what?
Well, look, at the end of the day, most of what we call the eighth floor, the executive, I've already gone through this. I was Ken Paxton's first assistant attorney general. Governor Abbott took his team, went over to the governor's office. And so I had to build a team from scratch. I hired Jim Davis. He's now the president of the University of Texas. I hired Brantley Starr. He's now a federal judge here in Dallas. I hired Bernie McNamee. He was a Trump-appointed FERC commissioner. You go hire the best talent, and then you can build a great team. We did that. And I'll do that on day one. But the second thing is to go open the books of the NGOs and the nonprofits that are trying to Islamify Texas, that are putting criminals on the streets by backing up liberal DAs and judges that are not wanting to defend the people. And now make sure that we're stopping the open borders and looking at these NGOs and nonprofits as well. And then I think another important issue that people don't talk about enough, I think, on the campaign trail, and I try to, is what I call the corporatification of Texas. We've got boardrooms in New York that are deciding how we live. Data centers are, important in terms of how we deal with economic growth, but they have an impact on power and the grid. They have an impact on water. They have an impact on our kids. They have an impact on the night sky in rural communities. And you need an attorney general that's going to defend the people of Texas and not just whatever the boardrooms say when they come into Texas. And somebody who's going to stand up and fight to deliver, to stop that Islamification of Texas, and to make sure we keep our streets safe.
But you're talking about the Texas miracle here. I mean, has it gone too far?
Well, what I think you've got in Texas is growth that is built on the back of a climate that we've created on regulations and on taxes that want to draw economic activity here. But you also need to be mindful of what you do to the grid and to power, and to make sure we've got that in place to deliver. You can't just go plop, AI data centers all over rural Texas and not think there's going to be an impact. So the Attorney General's got to be able to weigh all of that and balance it, represent Texans and their interests, because economic growth is critically important, but so is culture. So is our society. So is our sovereignty. We've got, millions of people that have come into Texas and that are changing the whole structure and dynamic of Texas. And I want to make sure that we're defending our values, defending our Christian values, our Judeo-Christian principles, making sure we don't have this Islamic movement that undermines our way of life, and defend Texas, the Texas that our forefathers fought, bled, and died for.
Congressman, good luck to you.
Thank you. God bless.